A lot of people think that exercise equals weight loss. Even when people are like, "Oh, I want to get healthy, I'm gonna lose weight." That don't necessarily mean that you're healthier, right? And I think they're missing the point. It's not the weight loss part that they're talking about, it's the physical activity part. So I think everybody need to change the notion of, "Oh, I need to lose weight to be healthy," to "I need to get active to get healthy." And if we just focused on the physical activity part and understand that weight loss could be one of the side effects of regular physical activity, I think more people would be generally active.
Hello, and welcome to the Conspiracy of Goodness podcast, where you'll hear conversations that generate one aha moment after another for you. There is an enormous wave of goodness and progress well underway in the world that almost no one knows enough about yet. We have an amazing guest on the Conspiracy of Goodness podcast, Martinus Evans. Martinus is lately part of a buzz that's going on at the periphery of the health and fitness world. Martinus has been on the cover of the New York Times, the New York Post, CBC, Men's Health Magazine, the Good Morning America, Runner's World. And that wouldn't be unusual, except that he has run 8 marathons and weighs over 300 pounds. And the thing is that he's opening up the world for those of us who are larger body size and want to be a part of all the health and fitness movements that are going on, but society is telling us we don't belong. He had a doctor's visit where he was told by sounds like a pretty unkind doctor that he should lose weight or die. And in that moment, he will tell us a story in a few minutes about how he resolved to run a marathon or many. And since then, he's coached hundreds of runners. He's founded the SlowAF Run Club, a community of over 16,000 people worldwide who are larger body size and also enjoying the heck out of running. He's also the author of a great book, which we'll talk about in this interview. And when he's not running races all over the world, he enjoys speaking passionately about issues related to size inclusivity, mindset, and DEI, and mental health. This is all part of becoming part of a world where we can all enjoy sports, outdoors, fitness, and enjoy the kind of mental health benefits that all of our body types should have access to. So welcome, Martinus Evans.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Linda.
Okay, well, we've got to get started. I chatted with Martinus a few minutes before we started our interview today, and I shared with him that we have a team of 6 at the Goodness Exchange. And yesterday, I proposed this interview to the team and said, "What are you curious about? What do you want to hear from Martinus?" And they had no end of questions. So I am just so excited to get started with the way our minds really work about the topic that you are championing and you are opening up a whole new world for people about. So let's just start with your story. Give us the rundown of how you wound up championing this running for all sizes movement.
Yeah, to sum it up, 10 years ago, I had some news by a doctor. It wasn't even news, it was more or less a adversarial discussion, for lack of better words, which left me furious, frustrated, and angry. And that was the start of me starting to run. And then over the 10 years, I've done a bunch of amazing things. I've ran 8 marathons, 100 other different races, but I've also founded this community called the SlowAF Run Club, which has about 16,000 members worldwide. Also, has created a merch line or a brand to go along with that that has size inclusive clothing that goes from a small to a 6 or 7X. And I really don't necessarily see myself as a influencer. I kind of see myself as a change maker and an influential person and in a field that really needs some changing.
Yeah, on our team at the Goodness Exchange, I've been chubby all my life, and most of us found ourselves very connected to your story because we have been in those exact situations where we didn't have the right body to change our clothes in front of others, like everybody else, just stripping off, changing their t-shirt, or we've been in those moments, in the doctor's office when there feels like shame is the name of the game, and times when we I was running 7 miles a day and weighed 200 pounds. For a woman, I was 5'8", but that doesn't seem like it equates to most people. And you have and yet I was super fit. So you have a similar story. Talk to us a little bit about the scope of where this conversation's going.
So yeah, so 10 years ago, I was working at Men's Warehouse at the time. So I was on my feet 8 to 10 hours a day selling suits. I was a suit salesman working commission sales, wearing hard bottom dress shoes, walking on concrete floor. Like this is something I just like to put up there, right? Just so people can like imagine this. And I started to develop some hip issues. And I went to go see a doctor. This is the first time me ever meeting this doctor. He wasn't a my regular doctor. He was just an orthopedic surgeon that I just looked up online to try to figure out what's going on. So I go into this doctor's office and I'm like, Doc, my hip hurts. I used to be a football player. Now I'm on my feet 8 to 10 hours a day. Like, what's going on? And this doctor didn't touch me. He didn't put a stethoscope on me. He didn't do any of that stuff. He just looked at me and said, I know why you're in pain. Okay, what's that? And he was like, you're fat. You need to lose weight or die. So many people have experienced this in their life, right? Like you can have a broken pinky toe, like your finger could be broken, and you go see a doctor, and they're like, "Well, yeah, let's talk about that finger. Like, yeah, we need to get that together, but let's talk about your weight first." So this is the same thing that was going on with me. So this doctor goes on to say, "Well, you got the stomach as a pregnant woman. You need to start walking to lose weight. All this other stuff." So I told him, being very facetious, I was going to run a marathon. He laughs at me and tells me that's the most dumbest thing he has heard in all his years of practicing medicine. Not only that, he went on to say that if I run a marathon, I will die on the course. So, Linda, I'm sitting there in a catch 22. Like, you want me to lose weight or die? But if I try to run a marathon, I'll die there as well. So I remember leaving the doctor's office being like, you know what? Well, let's find out. And I bought some running shoes that day, and got on a treadmill that day, and that was the start of my journey.
And that journey, my whole team was shocked that am I right? Just 16, 20 weeks later, you ran your first marathon?
I never ran my first marathon. I ran my first 5K.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a long way. I mean, 16, 20 weeks. You must have had a level of physicality and a level of health that started you off in a different place to be able to do that in just such a short time.
Well, one of the things was I was on my feet 8 to 10 hours a day.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
people, like people just see my outer appearance, but like I was walking around, like I was walking on the sales floor for 8 to 10 hours a day on my feet. There was no sitting down. Right. I was a weekend warrior, so I played basketball and flag football with friends and things of that sort. Right. So I had that, but people just seeing this very large individual and just had their own opinions about me and where I was in life. Like, they just imagined that I was just being at home, very sloth like, laying on the couch with chips, potato chips, and ice cream on my belly, and eating both of those as I watched TV. And that was far from the truth.
You know, it isn't that true? Most folks that I know, can look back at their grandmothers and pictures of the people they come from. At least in my family, I have a daughter who's 6 feet tall and always been a giant of a girl. Her dad played professional basketball. We were just going there. Both of our
Mhm.
sides of our family have this gene, and you can't outrun your genes. And so I'm sure that and yet these people carried on our grandmother's generation. My God, they worked themselves to death sometimes. And that requires a level of fitness, right? I mean,
Yeah.
like you were on your feet. You were doing what you needed to do to get through the day. Um, so why running? Why was running what popped into your mind? Because I'm sure you could have had success at lots of different sports.
I was just being facetious. This doctor was telling me I need to go walk on the track and like walk for 4 laps and all this other stuff. And I'm like, well, if you're going to take it to one extreme, I'm going to take it to the other extreme. So, it's just me just trying to one up him in this conversation of being very irritated, right? Historically, it's not generally accepted to massage your fist against somebody else's face, especially when it's a doctor. So instead of massaging my fist against his face, I had to use my words.
Yeah. Okay. So, what do you think about when I talk about the genetics, just the people we all come from? Does that resonate with your story at all?
Yeah, like it is a part of where we come from, right? And I think that for most individuals, genetics has a lot to do with our body type. It has a very lot to do with it.
My dad was a physician, and I remember one of the last things he said when he died of cancer, but he was with it right to the end. He put his hand on my my arm and he said, "Linda, you're a good keeper. You're gonna have to watch your weight your whole life." And what he meant was we keep calories really good. My standard joke my whole life has been that I just missed my millennium. I would have been great in the ice age. And I'm half joking about that, but at some point, I'm so much older than you. You do have to develop an okayness with what you got and play the cards. And it sounds like this is what you were uniquely built to contribute. I mean, all your life, did you ever think you'd be in the New York Times and that you'd be doing something on Good Morning America?
Absolutely not. Did not see that in the plan. Did not see that in the future. That was not on my vision chart or my vision board. So it's definitely completely different than what I had in mind. But I'm glad that I'm here.
How did that chain of events start? Like what came first? And oh, I think the most beautiful thing that I found, I just love that photograph of you. What was it on Men's Health?
Mental. Yeah.
Yeah. You're striking a really, really interesting pose. And I mean, we gotta embrace this stuff.
Yeah. So how did we get there? Like
Yeah.
I don't know. 10 years of doing what I love, writing about my love, writing about what I love, and just doing the thing that I love to do. So, once the doctor called me fat and I started to, go on this journey of like training for a marathon, I blogged about it as well. So, created a blog called 300 Pounds and Running. And that pretty much was like my like diary, online diary about like what was going on. And from there, like I think like it just evolved from blogging to Twitter to Instagram, from Instagram to podcasting to writing about it to individuals just finding my story motivating and inspiring. That you know, it was just a 10-year journey from doctor calling me fat to me posing nude in men's health.
That is such a great a great arc of time and impact, I think.
Mhm.
Like, do you have any stories of that people have shared with you about how your story has affected them?
Oh, tons of stories, right? Have been tons of individuals who have stopped me along the way to say, like, I was feeling bad about myself. I was feeling bad about, where I was in my journey, and hearing your story and hearing your philosophy helped me change the way that I thought about my own personal journey. That is something I
Mm,
hear all the time.
mhm. And, when you say my own personal journey, do you see yourself as a different person than 10 years ago? Like what's going on in do you have any tips for our mental chatter? Is the best question I could ask you about this.
So, tips for mental chatter. Let's go in there. I got a bunch of them. So,
Okay.
so much so that I wrote a chapter about like just mental health. So
Okay,
not mental
first
health,
let's
but
mention
like
the book because I
yes.
want to make sure people connect with the book.
Okay.
Promote all you want. Tell me what the name of the book is.
Okay. SlowAF Run Club, the ultimate guide for anybody who wants to run. So this is a how-to manual on running that I wrote that recently just came out. So in chapter one, I have the chapter is titled "You versus Your Mind versus Everyone Else." So it just tells you like what life is about, right? It's literally you trying to do the thing, you try and get off the couch, you trying to go from 0 to 1 in that actual physical process. Then it's your mind, all of the things that's going on in your head, all of the things that you subconsciously picked up, you telling your all the stuff or narrative you told yourself, right? And then versus everyone else. So it's all the things that people have said to you along the way, all the things of like, oh, people are looking at me, and now you're processing that as well. So, like, that's life in general, you versus your mind versus everyone else. And throughout that process, there has been some things that I learned along the way. The first thing is not everything you think is true, and not everything you feel is real. So, really understanding that if you can separate your thoughts and feelings from the actual person that you are, you can be unstoppable, literally unstoppable, because you already know that your mind is going to play tricks on you. Our minds is programmed to literally get us out of discomfort. We don't want to be uncomfortable. So our mind would tell us any and everything to make sure that we are not experiencing discomfort. So that is the first thing, right? Really understanding not everything you think is true and not everything you feel is real. Now, if you add that with, we all have an inner critic, okay? I've named my inner critic. I've given my inner critic a persona. My inner critic name is Otis. He has a very raspy voice. He's a five pack of cigarette smoker. And once you understand that you can kind of separate this inner critic from you, because most of the time, our inner critic is in our voices. So it's literally us telling us that you are a bad person or you can't do that. What I've done is changed that and flipped it on his head so that my inner critic is in a different voice and has a different persona. And that way I can really think about, like, okay, yeah, what you're saying is something that you're trying to like prevent me from being uncomfortable, but it's not helpful. So that way you can kind of reason with your own inner critic so that you can move on in the space to go on and crush your goals. And then the last thing I would mention, because this is my mindset bag, but like the last thing I would mention is like practice delusional self belief. So now that you got your critic in check, you know that not everything you think is true and not everything you feel is real. Now you practice delusional self belief. What is that? It's the fact that you believe in yourself so much and you're so wedded to your dreams, your goals, and aspirations that you already have in your head that you're going to do it, and not only that you're going to go that you believe that you're going to do it, you're going to do the work to get there. So if you think about all the modern marvels, even this, like I'm talking to you on a microphone, I got a camera here, somebody had to create that. Imagine flying. Imagine the Wright brothers being like, oh, I want to be amongst the birds, and somebody being like, what are you smoking? You done had too much milk of the poppy. What you mean you want to fly? But we fly every day, and it's just a normal occurrence. So, like, that's the notion of practicing delusional self belief, is that you have to believe in yourself so much that you are going to do it, and you're going to put in the work to actually do it.
Those are three very big ones. And I think you could apply them to almost anything that you kind of know in your heart is something you want to go after.
Yes, that's the beautiful part about sports, physical activity, is that it's all an allegory for life.
Mm. Okay. So the other thing I noticed about your work. Oh, let's take a break. I've gotten so wrapped up in your message that I forgot to take a little break. Let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk to Martinus more about these insights that he's gotten from this wonderful journey he's been on, and how so generously he's sharing it with the world. Okay, we'll be right back. You know how the constant negative noise in our digital lives feels like it's reaching a boiling point? Now, many of us have tuned out the news and social media almost entirely. Well, it doesn't have to be that way. There are newsworthy stories about amazing progress, innovation, leaps in human potential, and wonders in the natural world, and they're just not reaching the top of our feeds. We can have access to this, but none of us has the time or maybe even the emotional stamina to search through all the doom and gloom news to find what's right with the world. Okay, enter the Goodness Exchange. There, we are giving instant access to positive news for curious people. Did you hear about the recent Harvard study that found that exposure to just 4 minutes of good news can make you 32% less anxious and 18% more optimistic? Well, I don't know about you, but I need those kind of numbers in my life. So, if you want to live with more joy and way less fear, it's really simple. First, you join us at the Goodness Exchange. Everyone around the world has the opportunity to access this kind of content. And we've promised no politics for about a decade, so you're safe from all that distraction as well. Second, you allow this new, more positive, balanced worldview to put a spring in your step again. It can change the way you react to your kids, your coworkers, everybody you come in contact with. And the stories we write about can make you the idea person in your circles. These challenging times call for us to wake up and take control of our perspective. The people who use the Goodness Exchange have the ability to react to the harshness of the world much different because they know way more about what's right with the world. And that's a resource. So, subscribe to the Goodness Exchange, our YouTube channel, and the podcast, and use this content to live a more expansive worldview. It is still an amazing world out there, and you can be a part of it. Welcome to the Conspiracy of Goodness. Okay, we're back with Martinus Evans. So, Martinus, talk to us about the SlowAF Running Club, because this is this need for us all to win or be the best, or what's that all about? It seems like if there's ever a sport that should be just about your personal best, if it's even that, it should just be about the process and the journey. It seems like it would be running, but everybody's got to win. What's this slowness all about?
So, SlowAF Run Club is a community that I founded. We have about 16,000 members worldwide. And one of the things that I want to get everybody to really understand is that they can be a runner in the body that they have today. You don't have to lose any weight. You don't have to go out and do anything special. You can be a runner in the body that you have today. And that's what we do inside the SlowAF Run Club. Like, we provide inspiration, motivation, action, and actual how to actually get started running. And we have this community so that individuals can also feel like they're not alone in this journey, because starting a journey going from 0 to 1 is very hard, and it can be very lonely. You can feel like you're by yourself and you're just a trailblazer, and that's not necessarily the case. So we want people to understand that they're not alone, and we have a community just for them. When you're talking about running, right, in the theoretical sense, it's really about trying to outbeat somebody. But what I found out, and one of the things that I really believe, is that if you're not a elite athlete, none of this stuff really matters. If your job does not consist of you getting first, second, and third place and like running a distance, none of this stuff matters. Linda, let me tell you something. Most races are permitted as a parade. Like, there's no racing permit. Like, they have to go get a parade permit. So even if you just see it as that way, like, we're all participating, we all paid our money to participate in a parade to get a participation medal at the end of it. Last time I checked, every time I see a parade, I don't see the Santa Claus parade trying to beat out the Mickey Mouse float. Like, I don't see them in competition. They're all doing their thing, waving to the crowds, and doing their thing. So, like, why, when it comes to these road races or running parades, if you're not an elite athlete, none of this stuff matters. So we really just need to really enjoy the thing that we're doing and have fun while doing it.
I love that notion. Once I was running with someone who runs races. I mean, that's what they do. That's their hobby. They keep trying to, do all the things. And she made some kind of a comment to me. She said, "Well, that's not running." Looking at what I was doing, she said, "That's more like a survival shuffle." And I had this moment, like, of course, she's little bitty thing, very, with the right clothes on and the whole thing. And I thought, "Oh my gosh, that's kind of some serious hubris to say that in the first place." But I love my survival shuffle, is what I responded to her. I get to hear the birds, and I notice people around me, and I do all these little mind games with colors and things as the
Mhm.
world goes by. I have a great old time in my survival shuffle. So I did I did at least speak up for myself. But do you see that there's more to running, as far as experiencing others, maybe being able to run slow and chat and that sort of thing as well?
Yeah, there's just so many benefits to running, right? Just overall, regular physical activity, there's so many benefits that comes to regular physical activity, whether it's running, walking, or whatever, right? So, like, that's one of the things that I try to preach to everybody to say that regardless, like running is good for your mental health. It's still good for your health in general. Like it's something to be outside. It's something to be amongst nature. All of that stuff is great. It gives you endorphins. It helps you stay grounded. Like all of that stuff is beneficial, regardless if it's slow or fast. My thing is just do it consistently.
Yes. Okay, so that is the truth about a lot of things, that you got to put in the time, to where that consistency really draws you in like a magnet.
Yeah.
So tell me about some of the stereotypes or myths. I bet you have a chapter about that, with body size and all that you like to kind of burst.
Well, I think the thing is that a lot of people think that exercise equals weight loss. And I think we've been taught and fed that for years, diet culture, so on and so forth, right? And I think that even when people are like, oh, I want to get healthy, I'm going to lose weight, that don't necessarily mean that you're healthier, right? And when everybody's like, oh, you need to lose weight because that's going to be good for your blood pressure, your heart rate, your cholesterol, things of that sort, I think they're missing the point. It's not the weight loss part that they're talking about, it's the physical activity part. So I think everybody need to change the notion of, oh, I need to lose weight to be healthy to I need to get active to get healthy. Cause that's the point that people are missing. And if we just focused on the physical activity part and understand that weight loss could be one of the side effects of regular physical activity. Could be, right? I want to focus on that. Could be one of the side effects, but it doesn't mean that it will be the side effect. If people just really understood that, I think more people would be generally active if they really just got a hold of that notion. However, I think that with diet culture being, the diet industry is a multi-trillion dollar industry, is that I think that's like the greatest kept secret that's not a secret, right? And the reason why they do that is because like self-love and self-compassion cannot be sold within a bottle of pills or powder or so on and so forth or a special diet. But self-hate, self-loathing, lower self-confidence can be. So I think that like that's the biggest misconception is that, you know, the way they put it is, oh, you hate your body, you hate your life, like do this, take these pills, and your life is gonna change. And it doesn't. And then you feel even worse about yourself. And then how what the industry does is say, well, it's your fault. Like it's your fault that you feel the way you do about your body. So, like, continue to take these pills and drugs versus being like, no, it's actually the industry's fault that you are going through the thing that you're going through.
That is so true of so many things in life, where it's easy to place blame, and take it off the place where
It should be.
it needs to remain, right? It's so we seem to accept blame pretty easy.
Yes, we do. And I think that's the thing, right? Like, so I have, like I said, I have degrees like a thermometer. I have a degree in exercise science. And one of the things they tell you is that like diets don't work. 95% of diets don't work, right? And the research says that anybody who has gone on a diet, they are more likely to like regain the weight they lost, if not more, right? So if that's the research and we know that's to be true, then why are we still hawking diets? Like, why are we still hawking that as the solution when we know that that stuff don't work?
And, and we are constantly reminded of all this in society is that we need to go on that diet. We need to do this different. We need to be this way or that way. Talk to me about these moments. One of the questions that came up from my team was this one. They said, ask him how he works through those moments in the gym or the bike shop or at the starting line when people assume you are not competent or experienced because you're in a larger body.
Well, one of the things that I was always told is that somebody else's opinion is none of your business. So like I let them believe whatever they want to believe. Like what they eat and what they consume don't mess with me no bit. So there has been multiple times it's like, oh, this is your first marathon or it's your first race. I'm like, no, I've ran 100 races. And they're like, oh wow. Right. And then they go from like, oh, trying to like feel bad for me to like, oh, now they impressed, right? And I think it's just a part of the notion, right? I think we have a problem with the fitness industry that it's really about aesthetics, right? So everybody want the aesthetic of health or like what that means, but that doesn't mean that you're healthy. And I think that's the same thing is true with a person of size or being at the gym and so on and so forth, is that people automatically assume that you're trying to get to this aesthetic or work towards that aesthetic when it's not necessarily true. And I don't know about you, but the people have told me, when you assume and make an ass out of you and me.
It's so true. It's so true. In that same light, okay, so you have this moment in the sun where you're getting all these interviews and stuff. Is this insight that you're sharing with the world, is it being framed up as a opening of a new era, or is it like are you happy with the press that you've gotten about this? Do you think it's
Yeah.
moving? I guess what I'm saying is, do you think it's moving the needle in the right direction?
Um, we shall see.
Okay.
I think that the thing with press is that if it's new and newsworthy, like of course they're gonna go with it. But I think is really trying to figure out we shall see what they do in the future. Meaning, like, yes, I was on the cover of Runner's World, I was on the cover of New York Times and so on and so forth. But like, let's see what happens in the next 2 or 3 years. Are they still reporting on diet culture stuff, or are they actually reporting on things that continue to move the needle in the right direction? And I don't necessarily have the answer right now. I think it's new and noteworthy, and people want to be a part of it because media is a part of like monkey see, monkey do type of thing of like, oh, like, well, you was on New York Times. Well, of course I want to have them on Good Morning America. Oh, you was on Good Morning America. Like, of course we want to have you on the Today Show, and so on and so forth. So I really think that I'm gonna have to see like what happens after all of the hype train dies down and the book has been out for 6 or more months. So let's see what happens around New Year's. Like, are they going to go back to like 10 ways to lose your Christmas pudge, or they're gonna really go into like, 10 ways to like really get active in the body that you have right now.
It's so huge. Okay, over the scope of time, I can report this. I've been a traveler all my life, like roughing it, canoe, back wilderness camping. And I'm this big gal. So when I go into EMS or any of the sporting, the hiking, sporting gear kind of places, never have I ever been able to buy that. And then I had this daughter who's even taller and bigger than me. No way. But in the last year and a half, we've started going into these stores and finding clothes.
Mhm.
Now, I think that indicates a level of investment in society in a new way of thinking about who's outdoors or who's exercising or who's rock climbing and so forth. So I do have to say from my own personal experience just shopping that the world of size inclusivity, I think, is opening up.
It is. It's moving slow though.
Yeah, or
And
slow, way slow.
I
Yes.
say that because while there may have been a lot of movement on the women's side of things, I think the men's side of things have been very slow and have been very disappointing. So, like, yeah, like most women these days can go into big box stores, Target or whatnot, and see plus size models on the wall, plus size mannequins, and get plus size clothing. But like, you go to the men's section, and it's still Johnny with six pack abs on the wall, the models, and on the mannequin as well. So I think like it's one of those things where it's like, are they pandering? The question I have is, are they pandering to women, and like, why haven't like it moved over to the men's side as well? Like, is it really that they want to do something about it, or is it that the female population has been the loudest when it comes to like body acceptance or body politics movement, that the brands are now on that same thing that we were talking about the media of like, oh, this is trendy, so like let's try to capitalize off that and make our dollars away from that. So I think it goes back to like, I would love to see more in the futures to come. Even when, I don't know if you remember like the whole big hoopla when like Nike released like a plus size woman mannequin, like that was amazing. But I did not see a plus size man mannequin to go along with that.
This is really interesting because my team is 5 women and 1 man, and, yet they all thought this was an issue. They knew that. They asked me to ask you about that. Their question was, "We hear about spaces where women are being freed from this burden, but we don't see a lot happening with men."
Yeah,
So, I think it's even observable from the outside that you don't see spaces and this a mindset opening up.
yeah.
Well, maybe we'll get that started right now,
Well,
Martinus.
Linda, like I can go on this for days, but like, tell me the last plus size men superhero you seen.
Yeah.
Like, tell me the last
Yes.
plus size kids toy, but with a kung fu grip. Plus size GI Joe, plus size superhero, so on and so forth. Like, you just don't see that for the male or masculine side.
Yeah.
So I think we have
So
a whole lot of issues to go along with that.
we totally do. And that brings me to a really important topic that we have to make sure we have time for you to share your insights on. What advice would you give to your younger self now, knowing because I'm assuming like me, you've always had this larger size body type. What advice would you give your younger self now, knowing what you know?
I think the advice that I would just give myself is that like the world is a mean place. I think the world is a mean place, and if you focus on external validation, you'll never feel adequate in the space in your own body. External validation does not equate to self love and self belief and self actualization.
Mhm. I think that that is true of almost every aspect of our lives, not just body size. You know, if you are looking for the outside world to validate who you are or what you can be or any of those things, we're going to fall short because the world can be a very mean place.
Right.
Everyone's struggling. Like, okay, so here's another one. Once in a while, when the family friction is going on, my daughter will sometimes talk in a way that makes me feel like I did something wrong as a parent, that I didn't prepare her better for this. I always used to say, I have to say, I knew she was going to be 6 feet tall right off. And I would say things to her like, the taller you are, the more powerful you'll be in a man's world. I started telling her that when she was 3 years old because I knew we were going to have a basketball player. And what I noticed in the world of women's basketball is all the girls have this very um, odd posture where they don't want to stand up and be their full and incredible self. And so I always wanted her to know that the taller she got, but talk to me about, but that was just what my little brain could think of to do. Like, tell me from your perspective, give me a few words of advice for parents who might be parenting a kid that's going to be a big person.
I think one of the things we have to do is like give them real talk in the most loving way we can. I'll give you an example. So in my book, I wrote about like running races, right? And I let them know that, I've ran races where they've ran out of water, they ran out of food, they packed up the stuff, I got lost with all these things, right? And in spite of all of these things happen, all these obstacles I still have to overcome, like I still do what I do because I enjoy it. And I think that's something that we're going to tell our kids as well, to understand that like these things are going to happen. I want to get you mentally prepared for this. But like the world is not a kind place on a one-on-one basis, right? And I just want to make you or like help you be prepared for that, or at least get your mindset ready for like these things may or may not happen, but I want you to be prepared either way. And I think like that's the way like parenting could or should be, is to let them know that, you know, I wish somebody would have told me, like in the book, I'll go on to say, like, I've ran races where they ran out of water. Be prepared for that. I ran races where they ran out of food. Be prepared for that. I ran races where I've gotten lost. Ran races where all of this stuff happens. You need to be prepared for all of these things. And the thing is that you can hope that it doesn't happen, but I would rather you be prepared for it and not need it than need it and not be prepared for it.
Yeah, it was always when this was, of course, my daughter's 30, so this was 30 or 25 years ago, and it was harder. The conversations about body image were much harder back then than they are now. So I do think that there's been some progress on that too. But and now we can talk about all kinds of differences, and we can try and celebrate it as well, right?
Yeah,
Like we don't have to be the same. We none of us even want a world where we're all the same.
no.
So why we aren't all looking and celebrating diversity, I have no idea. That's another subject. So tell me about a peak moment. Do you have some peak moment where you said to yourself, "Oh my gosh, I'm on the right track. This is going to be my life. I'm going in the right direction." Do you remember any peak moments you want to share?
I think that's an interesting question because I've always had the mentality of like we shall see. Like, I've always had the mentality of like there's no such thing as good or bad. It's just we shall see, and it just goes to like the fact of like me not necessarily putting all of my marbles into external validation, but really putting it into me following my gut to know that I'm doing the right thing that's really driving me, and like the right thing that's really driving my values, and making sure that I'm going in the right way of my values. So what that looks like for me, like I remember when I ran my first race, and I lined up way in the back. Like I'm talking, I was past the walkers, past anybody else. I was in the back behind a mom who had like the double stroller with like a golden retriever attached to it. And I literally thought that the mom with the stroller with the dog attached to it was going to like run faster than me. And I remember like the gun going off, and like me passing the moms, me start passing the walkers, and then me starting to like pass runners. And that point really hitting me, and being like, holy crap, like I'm actually a runner. Like I'm doing this running thing. That was a peak moment for me. I think that when I started to coach other runners to do the thing, I think that became a peak moment for me, because like that was the inkling for me to say, you know what, I need to write this book because I'm starting to get the same questions over and over again. And I think that a book would be a more efficient way to like get my clients up to speed versus me telling 50 or 60 people at the time the same thing over and over again. So I think like those are the things that I think of like with peak moments. Of course, like getting on Good Morning America, like that was fun. Being on cover New York Times, like that's fun. Like those are just like external validation stuff that just happens. But I don't bank on that stuff. I don't necessarily like count on it, because like that stuff will come, you'll get a little spike, and then everything will go back to normal. So I try to focus on like the minutia of like the normal everyday life. I think a great example of this is that literally went to go see get went to Good Morning America. Like my wife came, some friends came. We went to breakfast afterward. After everybody left, and it was just me and my wife. We get home, like come through the door. I'm like taking off my shoes, and she's like, "Hey, can you take the trash out?" So like even that whole notion of like I was literally on Good Morning America like less than an hour ago, and like life is just back to normal. Like it's literally on Good Morning America, everybody's fawning over me, and like my wife is like, "Hey, can you go take out the trash?"
I totally know these moments. I had a guest, David Pearl. I introduced him. I had this nice introduction, just like I gave for you. And he got the first words out of his mouth. He said, wait, can I go get my wife and you can do that again and say all those nice things? She just thinks I'm average. But it is true. We all are just everyday people. And we do have these spikes in life.
And I think that's more or less what it is that I'm just a regular guy who wrote a book, but I've had these thoughts about myself or like the thoughts about the market for a very long time, and I guess I said it long enough that people are just starting to believe me.
It's lovely. Okay. So as we wind down here, one more time, the name of the book, and I should tell people, there will be a full article written around our Martinus's episode here on the Goodness Exchange website, and it will include a link to every single thing that he and I have talked about, including this other podcast episode that's so fun. And his book will be there with a link to order it. I'm assuming it's on Amazon. What's the name of the book again?
Slow AF Run Club, the ultimate guide for anybody who wants to run. So it's available wherever books are sold. So, of course, Amazon, of course, Barnes and Noble, but also your local independent bookseller
Oh,
as
good.
well. Yeah, it's just
How's it
one of the
doing?
things. It's doing pretty well.
Good.
I think it's doing pretty well.
Yay. Okay, so if this interview had been just 2 or 3 minutes and like the one question I had asked you was, what do you really wish people knew? Like sometimes when you're just seeing the way the world works and something happens and like there's for me, I know I get interviewed a lot. I there's if I only had 3 minutes, there's one thing I really wish people knew about how to navigate the internet. That's what I get interviewed about. Tell me what you really wish people knew.
What I wish people knew is that somebody made this shit up. Somebody made all of this stuff up, and like we're just following along with it. So ask questions, and like really ask yourself, like, why are you falling in line with rules that other people made up?
Oh.
And if they don't fall in line with you, it's time to change those rules so that it makes sense towards you.
That is sage advice, sage advice. Okay, lastly, what would have to happen next? Like I'm sure you hope that your insights improve the lives of others. What would have to happen next? You need people to share this. Please, one more time, tell us where they can join others in this.
Absolutely. So we have an app called the SlowAF Run Club app. So you can go download that on iOS or Android or your favorite phone, what you call it, app store. So like that's something that we're working on. I am doing public speaking. So if you're looking for a speaker who talks about body politics or motivation, mindset, I'm here. And then the last thing that we're actually working on is launching a nonprofit. The goal with this nonprofit is to give physical activity away to everybody for free. So our goal is to inspire 1 million people to start running in the body that they have right now, and that's those are the next steps with the nonprofit. So we're in the process of getting that launched so that we can allow individuals to launch their own local chapters, but also so that we can help drive the mission of letting people know that they can be a runner in the body that they have now, and put our money where our mouth is at, and like actually get people out running, whether that's giving them gear, whether that's giving them stipends to run races, whether that's giving them like flight credits to go to fly to different places. Like we just want to be able to just give the joy of running to everyone.
Wow, that's lovely. All right. Well, I can't thank you enough. Martinus Evans, go to just pop that in with New York Times beside it. Find out what this man is doing in the world. He is opening up all kinds of new landscapes for folks of all body sizes and expanding what we think is possible. And I can't thank you enough for being on the Conspiracy of Goodness podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Linda.
All right. Well, I hope all the connections to goodness and progress carry you through your week. Thanks for joining us at the Conspiracy of Goodness podcast.